think that people should have hobbies. I think, as you said, every person in the world probably have at least two things that are interesting, about probably more. But a lot of people are not really following up on that. So first, I would say follow up on your passion.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. 20-Minute Leaders is a proud supporter of Make-A-Wish Israel and Tech to Peace, and is in proud collaboration with Secret Chord Ventures, J Ventures, Riverside FM, Fusion VC, Birthright Excel, J Impact, Leap, Google for Startups, and Hippo, and in media partnership with CTech. Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. This episode is all about the combining of passion, professionalism, work-life balance, if that exists, and how to pursue what one really wants to pursue. Meet Aran Erel, senior high-tech leader by day and best-selling author by night. Aran is the country manager of F5 in Israel, Greece, and Cyprus, and a respected author whose books have reached the top of the bestseller list. Aran published his first novel, Foretelling Yesterday, in 2011 by Yedioth Ahronot, and last year he has published his second novel, The Human Element, by Kinneret Zmora, also known as A Plan to Kill. His writing work is influenced and driven by the changes and experiences in his career path. On the other hand, he brings the creative world into his role and management strategies, as well as to the content worlds in which he operates. I have to say that you probably have the nicest work background that I have seen yet. It's at the point where somebody should make a Zoom background with whatever you have and then sell that to others to have as a virtual background. It's so nice.
Oh, thank you. So first I'll tell my wife. So this is one of the benefits of actually being married to an interior designer.
There you go. I had no idea.
Exactly. So she designs everything. And by the way, what you just said, so at least 3 or 4 engineers in my team actually generated the virtual background from this background. And they're even going to meetings with myself included, and they're just putting this in virtual background as their background as well. So
I love that.
Yeah, that's
incredible.
Works as a virtual background as well.
I love it. You see, this is how I'm getting people who are listening in on Spotify to come in and check it out on video. It's through the, no, I'm kidding, of course. But Aran, one of the most fascinating pieces of your background is sort of this multidisciplinary nature. And you told me one thing that stuck with me that will be the theme of this conversation right before we started, which is that you would not be able to give up either parts of your life, sort of the creative piece and the more professional piece, which I found very interesting, and obviously you'll tie it in much nicer than I can, but I found that very inspiring already. So Aran, get us started. Tell me a little bit about sort of who you are, what do you do, and how, and a little bit about your career journey.
Okay, so indeed, so I have 2 disciplines that I wouldn't have let go any of the. So I'll talk about my career for a minute, and then I'm going to talk about writing and how everything works together for me. Mm-hmm. So, in terms of my career, so I was writing code in the army. Afterwards, I joined an integration company as information security technical engineer. And throughout my career, most of my roles until I joined Cisco, and even within Cisco, were on the technical side of things. Pre-sale engineer, working, developing solutions, developing architectures. That's what I like. So I like technology. I love technology, and everything that I do is based on my love towards technology and building solutions with customers, partners, with people. Later on, what I've done is actually I switched more to the business side of things, to a more of a sort of a GM role or a country manager role. So within Cisco, it was managing the private sector. Later on within F5, what I do for the last 3 years is actually the country manager for Israel, for Greece, Cyprus, the Palestinian Authority as well, which is also interesting, and the relationships that we're building towards by making business together with the Palestinian Authority. And the other discipline that you talked about is actually writing. So my hobby is writing books. I've published two best-selling novels. The first one was in Yedioth books, succeeded. It's a thriller. And the other book is also a thriller. But what led me to actually writing the first book was a startup company that I formed right after the army with a partner, a very close friend of mine. And this, I won't tell the entire story because we only have 20 minutes. But I will say that it ended badly. And when it ended, I had two options: either I pursue some sort of legal action, and I decided against. The other alternative was to sit in front of a blank page and started writing. So that's what I did. And it took me 49 days to put in writing my experience, which later on, 5 years later, and various iterations, and it turned into a 500 pages, completely
Wow.
fictional novel. And it was a bestseller, a best-selling novel. Well, I'm a bit biased, but it was a good one. And then my second book was just published a year ago in Kinneret, another publishing house in Israel. And again, the combination of both. So I love technology, and I don't want to let this one go. And I love writing, so I need both in my life because I think they complement each other.
Incredible. I love I love that approach, and I'm sure that that story of writing that first book deserves a whole episode on its own. Tell me a little bit about, one life having sort of two separate lives in one, and they're intertwined in one way, but I'm sure that the way you interact with each of these sub lives is quite different mentally, emotionally, spiritually, if one will entertain that. How do you balance, and how are they different, those two aspects of your life?
Where they're different and they're not different. So they're intertwined, as you said. So technological piece. So first, both of my books have some sort of a technology piece in them. So the first book was a startup company of young people from Tel Aviv which are building a startup company, and then things go wrong because it's a thriller. And then the second book, which just came out a year ago, it's a cosmetics company, but the technological cosmetics company. So it's always technology in the center or in the background of what I'm writing. And my actual daily work, what I do is I tell stories. I tell stories in conventions and presentations and my team meetings and in my strategy meetings, because everything is a story. Everything we do is a story, whether it's technology or some sort of analogy that we're bringing from other aspect into what we do in our daily lives, then makes things much more interesting. So I would say these two things are intertwined. Technology with writing, and writing with technology, and you cannot really separate the two. The two live together.
How do you find joy in this different thing? How do they fulfill you maybe differently is what I'm interested in. Where do you find that inner fulfillment?
Writing, that's a good one, but the writing is extremely lonely. When I
Right.
write, I find myself locking the door to my room. I'm not seeing my kids. I'm not seeing my wife. I'm not even leaving lunch. So I'm just staying in my room starting 7 or 8 a.m., 12 hours straight. I'm not going out. I'm just writing. I have a words quota that I need to fulfill. And it's very, very lonely. Then on the other side, on technology, on business, you're always interacting. You're interacting with people, with companies, with customers, with partners. So you're always in some sort of interactions. So it's not lonely. It's the opposite of lonely. And sometimes you
Right.
want to be alone with yourselves. So I think that this is the way that I explain to myself when I need both pieces: the writing, the creation, the creativity, being alone, creating, and then the other piece of always interacting, always being part of some sort of a social circle that does something. So I hope this answers what you.
Well,
Which one
it
is?
definitely does, but it begs the next question, which is how do you know what to do when? One aspect that you mentioned is a quota, right? You have a responsibility to your job and you have a responsibility to the other job, whether it's, to Kinneret or to Yedioth or to yourself, you set goals. Creative work and professional work, they both require a lot of discipline. And to do either of them very well, I assume, and a little bit from my own experience as well, you need to come into it with a clear mind. I don't think you could get many words down on a paper if you just force yourself to sit down. You kind of need to be in somewhat of an enabling mind state. How do you put that into the whole equation of what to do when and how much?
You cannot write a book while actually doing your daily job or daily routine. You do have to disconnect, clear your mind, and only write. But so if I'm like an analogy here would be writing a book is a marathon, but the actual writing piece, the sprint, because writing the book could take 2 or 3 weeks if you're extremely disciplined. So I'm going to take a vacation for 2 weeks. I'm going to work for 14 days straight. I'm going to do 10,000 words a day. And I'm going
Wow.
to finish the novel within 2 weeks. I'm going to come well prepared for this. So I'm going to have a structure. I'm going to have a skeleton for the book. But when I'm writing it, it's going to be without any interference. It's going to be like sprint, like a really short sprint. But then the problem is it's not done. It's not finished. I need
Right.
to let this go, to give this to people that doesn't know me, that will read it and give me feedback. And this process can take years. But this is a marathon because now you can do your daily work because you're gonna forget about the book. You're gonna take at least 2 or 3 months until people give you your feedback, until you gather feedback and you gather your thoughts around what you wanna do in the book. Meantime, you're not really doing anything that has to do with the book. And then when you're starting to edit the books and make changes, you can do it overnight. You can do it in the mornings, like from 4 a.m. Doesn't sound great, but it works. From 4 a.m. until 7 a.m. or from over the weekends. And then you can finish the book while you're actually working and it doesn't interfere with anything. But the writing piece itself, it needs to be a sprint and you need 2 or 3 weeks to complete the entire book.
I want to go up in the air a little bit, about 30,000 feet, and extrapolate a little bit from what we're talking about. Because for you, you're talking about sort of being a technological leader at the same while writing books. But I think it speaks to a greater trend where we're growing up in a world that is much more multidisciplinary. We have many more opportunities, and we discover passions and excitements, right brain, left brain, middle brain, back brain, that that it's very unlikely that one element in our life will satisfy all of our needs and desires. So it's sort of we're talking here as if it's almost this contrarian approach that you're taking to life, having these two big things that you're excited about. I can only imagine that most people in the world can get excited about at least two things. And now it's a question of, whether to pursue it and to take on this challenge of being able to balance these different things. Have you thought about, what this may mean, for different people around you or different trends around the world?
Yeah, I think that people should have hobbies. I think, as you said, every person in the world probably have at least two things that are interesting about, probably more. But a lot of people are not really following up on that. So first, I would say follow up on your passion. So you need to love what you're doing. I don't know, you're doing podcasts, you're investing. I'm pretty sure
Right?
you're enjoying
Yeah.
what you do.
I'm having fun right now.
I do cybersecurity for one of the greatest companies in the world, so I love it. And if you're not into what you're actually doing throughout 10 or whatever hours every day, then you should probably switch roles, switch jobs. But love what you do, but then find yourself a hobby that will actually fulfill you. I love martial arts, and I was into fencing, and I had a band. didn't really
I
succeed
think you're even national champion at 13, if I remember correctly,
in fencing. Yeah,
in
national
fencing. Yeah.
championship in Israel. It was a very long time ago, but yeah, I can hold a sword. That's for sure. I had a band, so I was singing in the band, but I really don't know how to. I'm not singing very well, and I'm not playing very well. But it was fun. It was good, and I enjoyed it. And I think it's the same with writing and with other hobbies. So I think that each person should have this hobby, or and we're living here in Israel and everything, and sometimes it's very very stressed. We're working very very hard and working around the clock. And sometimes we're forgetting to relax a bit, to put everything aside and do something we're really, really passionate about. So I would say, yes, every person can definitely find this passion, and every person should also follow this passion and find a framework to make it work. Okay, so you like something, make it work. You know how to make it work. Nobody else knows how to make it work, but the person will know how to make this passion work within the daily routine.
Right. I think also probably an interesting question that is how to even begin by asking these questions and how to, ponder through them in a structured way or a frameworked way, which then actually allows you to go and do that. And how do you communicate those decisions to the world, whether it be your family? I'm sure that it's not a trivial thing for you to come to your wife and say one day, listen, I'm going to write a book and I'm going to take on a second full-time job and it's going to have implications, but it'll make me a much happier person. I don't know if that's how the conversation went on your side.
Well, I'm lucky here. So actually, the only reason which I actually got to publish this book was my wife, because she was an integral part of the ideation process.
Really?
What we're going to write about. And then when I wrote the book, there were so many problems with the draft. So we just worked together for days on solving these issues, and always the best solutions actually come from her, not from me. So on this aspect, I'm a lucky person. But yeah, sometimes it consumes a lot of your time. You're sitting in a room for hours upon hours. You're writing or you're working. Okay, even being a country manager for a significant operation, you're working many many hours. So it takes a toll. But you need a partner that will believe in you, that will go to this marathon with you. But you also need to remember that your partner has their own passions, and you have to make sure that you're supporting their own passions as well. So I'm making sure to always remember that I need to support these passions, and I love her passions as well. So it's easy for me. But it doesn't work. It only works if both people care about what the other person want to do.
Right. And I guess it's about it's about caring for how to help the other person reach their own fulfillment, so that they are fulfilled in their day to day, and then they can help you become fulfilled yourself in the day to day. Right.
I'll give you a small example. So my wife is an interior designer for the last 5 years. Before that, she worked in retail. She had like 70 employees in retail. And one day she came to me and she said, I don't want to do this anymore. I love design. I love graphic design. I love designing houses. I want to change. I want a big change. And she actually did that. She went studying for a few years, and she changed her life. She changed our lives, and now she has a successful interior designing business. She designs the most beautiful houses, or you're seeing this Zoom background as well. So it actually worked here both ways. So we're both supporting each other. And I think that if you don't have this support system in place, and if you're not willing to also support the other person, then
first of all, that's inspiring, and I can't help but notice that I heard a tiny bit of kids in the background, and so this begs the most important question, I guess. How do you take what you've learned about yourself, about your wife, and about sort of this reaching personal fulfillment through structure, framework, and doing, and then it's not just about the hobbies that you're mentioning. They're not sort of what people may consider time wasters. These are actually really really interesting pieces of your life that you're developing over time, that you're identifying that these are cornerstone pieces of who you are as people. And so they're very valuable. How are you thinking through that as a father, as a parent to your kids as they grow up into a world where there are structures, there's non-structural things? How do you think through that?
That's a deep philosophic question, Michael. It's so first I'm trying not to put too much pressure on them, but it's not easy, and I think that I'm trying to do the things that I like with them, if they like it as well. Just give you a small example. So we're actually writing short stories together. So if my son has an idea, he's 10 years old, he's very noisy. Yeah, you might be hearing him from time to time here. So we had an idea. So we just wrote a book, whatever, about some weird turtle that goes to and does, and meet friends and whatever. So you just, we're mimicking what I love. And I'm doing this with them, or we're taking the guitar. So honestly, the guitar is here as a beautiful background, but I'm not really playing it. It's probably out of tune. I am playing it when they go to sleep, and I have the mood to play it with them.
Yeah.
So you love music, so you do music with your kids. You love writing, so you're trying to write with your kids. You love technology, so you bring your kids to your team meetings, to your department meetings, to the conventions so both of my kids had front row seats in one of the conventions that I had a couple of years ago. They just sat in the crowd and 2.5 years ago, and they listened. And I think
that's awesome.
You're making what you're doing. You're making part of the entire family with your spouse, with your kids. You're trying to have fun as a family with what you're doing.
Aran, thank you so much for this time and for this energy and for the insights. This is why I do this show. So thank you very, very much. I wish you best of luck with the novel that was published a year ago. I'm excited for myself, as I'm definitely going to go buy and read it, knowing sort of a little bit about the progress that you went through as you're writing it. And I can only imagine the different awesome things you and your wife will do in the future. So thank you again for the inspiring words, for the more so even inspiring thought process about life, our own professions, and how do we find structure and framework for the different things we love to do. So Aran, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael. I enjoyed it very, very much. And I'm looking forward for your feedback about the novels.
100%.